Mike Hechenova is a real estate broker who has a questionable business record that dates back 15 years. Century 21 Realty Management President Chris Felix confirms that a grievance about a trust deposit was brought against Hechenova in 1976. But Hechenova resigned from the Realtors Association just before the start of the hearing, and the grievance went unresolved because no action can be taken against non-members. In 1984, Hechenova linked up with surveyor Tommy Anderson and Juan C. Pangilinan. Hechenova was the broker who sold lots in this subdivision, Track 1433, a track at the end of the Guam International Airport, a property that lies within the crash zone, where a federal study found residential use unacceptable because of the high potential for airline accidents. The federal court eventually threw out the map and voided the subdivision, but not before Hechenova had already sold many of the lots which are now useless for development and over which a title fight is in progress. At the same time, Hechenova was busy selling lots in another Anderson subdivision, Track 2023 on Nimitz Hill, a subdivision with no access into it and through which runs a power line accompanied by a 50-foot wide easement. Hechenova sold more than a dozen of these lots and never told the buyers that there was no road in and no way to build a road into their lots, nor did he mention that a power line cuts right through the middle, making useless the lots through which it passes. Hechenova has been a hard man to find recently. Cable News has been looking for him for the past few months, and so has the Attorney General's office. We caught up with him last week after this ad appeared in the newspaper. It opens with the notice of a GIGO lot for sale, but what perked our interest was the 26 half-acre lots being offered on Nimitz Hill. Call Mike or Sue, Air Inc., said the ad. It turned out to be Mike Hechenova, operating under a different business name than he'd used in the past. Cable salesman Jim Darst agreed to pose as a potential buyer in order to find out what Hechenova was selling and how he sold it. Using the number listed in the ad, Darst began with a phone call to Hechenova last Tuesday. He asked about the property.
It is Ocean View?
Yes.
How about neighborhood? Are there houses near it?
Yeah, neighborhoods there are millionaires. Because nobody there can stay that's poor.
Yeah.
The lowest house just there, I think, about $500,000.
Wow. I'm not quite in that range, but...
Yeah, but once you are there, you're already classified as one.
I see. Okay.
They set up a time to meet the following day. Hechenova, followed by Darst, and unbeknownst to Hechenova, a cable camera crew in a trailing vehicle followed their two cars as they drove up to the property site on Nimitz Hill. It is the same valley where the inaccessible power line encumbered Lot 2023 lies. But the lots that Hechenova is selling here now are on the other side of the valley, Lot 2023A, just south of 2023. Just as was the case with 2023, you can't get into 2023A over the naval pipeline, even though the Anderson-Hechenova map hinges on this inaccessible route which they drew before finding out whether the Navy would grant them access, which the Navy has subsequently refused to do. That's not what Hechenova told Jim Darst, though.
Now, what road is this? This is the road we came in on?
This is the one, the pipeline now.
Okay, that's the pipeline road.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Now, the only problem here is we have to accommodate, we have to go over this.
Yeah, build an overpass.
Yeah, right, okay.
Hechenova told Darst that we have to ask the Navy, when in fact the Navy had already been asked and refused to grant access over the pipeline.
Can you cut in a road anywhere else besides the pipeline?
Yeah. Oh, I don't show you the other one. Okay. We have another exit here that we can go.
Hechenova was pointing to this access and utility easement on the south side of the property. The problem with this easement is that it's straight and narrow, and it runs downhill. The easement granted in this map is only 50 feet wide, not wide enough to build a road straight down this hillside.
And it's too steep. It's really too steep to put in a road straight down.
Mike Cruz is the Bureau of Planning's chief planner. He also chairs a committee that is trying to sort out the mess Hechenova and Anderson made with 2023, and he is now taking a closer look at 2023A.
And the terrain is really rugged in this area. It's real steep land. It goes through a couple of valleys, one which looks like there's a river going through it. You would need
You got a river
permits.
running through some of those lots?
Yeah, yes. You'd need permits to develop from the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as from Government of Guam, which increases the cost. Most of the lots here, I would say, are on slopes which would make it very difficult to develop.
Besides the questions of access to this land and the difficulty of building here, there are some other serious problems with the lots in this subdivision. Most of them are seriously encumbered by debt, money owed by Hechenova to someone else. Hechenova did acknowledge to Darst that some of the lots were encumbered, but he said he was owed the money, not the other way around.
Some of these lots are encumbered, you know, that I sold some. I have 45 lots here.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
I sold about 30 some lots to one company.
Wow.
And what happened, didn't pay me.
The truth is that Hechenova is hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and he is trying to sell these lots to help pay off that debt. Many of the lots within 2023A have already been sold off for non-payment of an equipment lease debt to Black Construction Company, an $8,300 debt. But Hechenova couldn't even pay that, so Black went to court, and a court-ordered marshal's sale of many of these lots was the result. Lot 1, Block 1, sold to attorney David Lujan in May 1985 for $850. 2 years later, in May 1987, Lujan bought Lot 2, same block, for $722. On the same date, he also picked up Lot 3, Block 1, for $805. Bernardo Untalan got Lot 4 for $950. Lot 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and others all sold for less than $1,000 each at Marshall's sales. And the process is still ongoing. The prices for these 20,000 square feet lots range from a high of $1,000 to a low of $525. But Hechenova wants $60,000 for the lots he's now trying to sell in 2023A. That's the price he told Darst. Darst picked out 3 of the lots for possible purchase. Lots 4 and 5 within Block 2, and Lot 28, Block 1. These at least haven't been sold at Marshall's sale yet, but Hechenova said that these lots were not encumbered when they were.
This is your personal property. You're not a realtor for this. You own this property.
Yeah, I own this property. This is my name here. To my wife's name, Sue Hechenova.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's why you see there in my
Oh.
advertisement.
Hechenova says he's even going to build his own house on one of these lots and then build model units on a couple of other lots that he owns, all free and clear.
What I'm going to do, just sell one house at a time. I don't have to be in a hurry. The land is mine. It's free and clear. And
I see. Okay.
Mhm.
In fact, records at Land Management show that all 3 lots offered to Darst as being his, free and clear, are in fact already serving as collateral on a $600,000 loan that Hechenova has already defaulted on. In 1986, South Pacific Incorporated President Mike Hechenova mortgaged lots 4, 5, and 28, as well as 7 other lots within this subdivision, to the Small Business Administration, collateral to help him secure a $651,000 loan that had originally been made to Ralph and Irene Scamboluri. Less than a year later, in 1987, the Small Business Administration filed notice of default against both the Scamboluris and Hechenova for non-payment. Hechenova has been on notice since May 1987 that the SBA intends to sell the lots he tried to sell to Darst unless payment is made in full. Hechenova still owes several $100,000 to the Small Business Administration. But the SBA won't recover that several $100,000 by selling the 10 lots Hechenova put up as collateral. The mid-'80s Marshall sales to pay the Black construction debt proved that the individual lots to be valued at less than $1,000 each, an indication of the effect caused by the lack of access to the property and the difficulty of developing on this terrain. Even in this heated real estate market, SBA would be hard-pressed to recover $50,000 from a Marshall sale of property no one can use. Yet Hechenova told Darst that $60,000 would be a bargain for one of these lots. Hechenova said he's only offering 5 lots at this bargain price because once the road goes in, the prices will double.
The reason why I'm selling it low, I'm going to sell it only 5 lots for that price. Because once I put the road, and
Sure.
oh yeah, I can sell it 100,000. Because right now the price here is, you cannot find here less than like $50 per square meter, you know.
Yeah.
Darst agreed to meet Hechenova at King's Restaurant last Friday to close this bargain deal. To Hechenova's surprise, a cable news crew went instead. We began with Hechenova's sales job on the Anderson-Pangolinan Crash Zone subdivision of Track 1433, the one voided by a federal court after many people had already bought the Crash Zone lots from Hechenova. Did you know that you were selling land in the crash zone?
Tell the government of Guam. The government of Guam approved.
Did you know that?
No,
You didn't know that that was the crash zone?
no,
You had no idea that...
no
that-
idea.
that-
All I see is the record. The record says here that is approved by the government of Guam, approved by the TPC, and its lot is numbered, and then
You didn't know it was the crash zone.
I don't know it was a crash zone.
Okay. We then moved on to track 2023. More than a dozen people have paid up to $30,000 each for useless lots in this subdivision. Hechinova insisted that they're not useless and that there is access to lot 2023.
Why did the government of Guam? Why did the government approve this if
So
they know that?
you blame the government for approving
Right.
the map, right?
Right.
Did you know beforehand there was no access to these lots?
All I did, I gave this property to the surveyor and
Did you know that there was no access?
No, there is an access. I know
Did
it
you- where's-
because I dig the record in Honolulu, and it says there in CC.
Where is the access?
Right here, right here.
None. None at all.
That is a landlocked track subdivision.
As far as we can tell, yeah, it's landlocked.
There's no way for a car or a backhoe or a dump truck to get in there.
Not over an easement. There are no easements, access easements in this area.
He says there is.
We couldn't find any.
He says he found it in Honolulu. It's an old Navy document that you don't have.
Well, if he would provide us with that document, then maybe we don't need to spend any more time on this subdivision. That it's that there is access, because what we've been working on is trying to find access into the area, and we've not been able to find it.
Has he ever contacted you,
No.
given you the document?
No, he is not.
Have you ever been able to reach him?
No,
Have
we
you
have
tried
not.
to reach him? We then called Hechinova's attention to the power line that runs right through the middle of Lot 2023, encumbering many of the lots he's already sold to unwitting buyers. But there's a power line running through these lots. It's not shown on Anderson's map, and you sold these lots to people without telling them that they couldn't use the lots because there was a power line on it. Why did you do that?
I already told you. I already told you that I'm selling the land that was approved by the government of Guam.
Okay.
I have a certificate.
Even though there's a power line on it and they can't use
If
it.
there's a power, why can't they use it?
Because you can't build when there's a power
That's
line in the
right.
middle of it,
You
and
are
there's
wrong.
an easement. You've been selling lots to people that have power lines through them on which they can't build.
They can't build. They can't build.
They cannot build here. You know that.
They can't build
You know
because
that there's a power line in the
if
middle of this.
this easement there,
They
I'm
can't build. They can't build where the power
whoever
line
will,
is.
whoever
They
will.
can't build where the power line is, and you've sold
Where
them lots
the
with.
power line is that if there's a power line that exists here,
And you've
I have
sold
been
them lots.
explaining. I've been explaining to you already, and I don't have to explain to you anymore. And you're trying to just.
What have you explained? You've admitted that you said it's not your fault, that it wasn't on the map, and you didn't discover that. it
All
wasn't
right,
on
that is
map
the
till
truth
after.
of it. I'm telling you that I get the record from Honolulu.
Well, why don't you give the money back to the people that you sold those lots to?
I will be glad too. I'll give them the $10,000 back because the property is worth $100,000.
What do you
But
mean?
do you think the people?
How can it be worth $100,000 with a power line on it?
That is where you are wrong. I will put the easement. I will find a way.
Then we asked him to address 2023A and the property he tried to sell to Darst, Lot 28, which is not only encumbered by an SBA defaulted loan, but has been seized by the government of Guam for non-payment of taxes. So you're selling a property that's defaulted to the Small Business Administration and
No.
taken over by the government of Guam for non-payment of taxes?
No, because I have so many lots there
Yeah.
that I told Mr. Dorsey that I will give him the property that is free and clear.
But this
if
is the
one
one-
is certain particular property is not free and clear, I'll
Okay.
give him lot 26. I can give him. I have 40 lots there.
So 28 is not free and clear?
If it's not free and clear, I'll make it free and clear for him. Or I
So
will
you're telling me
exchange
now
it.
that you're admitting that it's not free and clear.
It is free and clear if I will pay the tax of $13.
And what about the Small Business Administration?
Small Business Administration.
You'll pay that too?
I will pay them too.
Okay. And since you can't get into 2023A off the Navy pipeline, we asked how he was going to build a road down his other access easement, straight downhill. What about this property here, the access to this property here?
The access to the property, can't you see this line?
Yeah? Have you seen that line?
Yeah, can you see this road?
There's no road there.
What is this?
That's an easement. You can put a power line through there, you can put a pipeline down there, that you can't put a road through there because that's straight downhill.
So if the street downhill,
You can't put...
the engineers can always find a way to find where to put the road.
The engineers can find a way?
Yeah.
You know how they're going to have to find a way? They're going to have to gain an easement rights through these other properties so they can put in a circuitous road.
So we can do that. There's no problem to that.
How are you going to do that? Have you contacted these people?
Exchange properties with these other people.
Have you done that?
Well, why should I do it now when the engineer did not tell me what?
Well, why are you telling Mr. Darst that you can build a road through here when you cannot build a road through here?
I told Mr. Rason that the road might be adjusted.
Hechinova denies trying to cheat or take advantage of anyone. You've been selling properties to people who think that they're going to be allowed to build on these lots, and they haven't been allowed to build. You've been fooling people.
We're not fooling people. I'm selling property that is approved by the government of Guam, and I am selling property that I have a title to it.
You've been taking advantage of people.
I'm not taking advantage of the people. The people take advantage of me because the boat is only $14,000 now. It's cost $100,000.
He blames all these problems on someone else. He says he's not responsible. It's okay to sell people property that they can't use. It's okay to sell people property in a crash zone. It's okay to sell people property that they can't get into.
And there are so many things here that is fault of TPC, and yet you blame the people, you blame the surveyor, you blame the developer.
It's the fault of the TPC and land management and the government, but it's not your fault.
That's right.
Kevin Kerrigan, Cable News, Agana.
Tonight, Surveyor Tommy T. Anderson is in Rosario Detention Center following his arrest this morning in Saipan. Anderson and attorney Francis Gill were indicted on Wednesday evening by the Special Territorial Grand Jury investigating corruption at the Department of Land Management and the theft of government land. At the request of the Attorney General's office, the indictments remained sealed until both men had been arrested. This morning they were unsealed, and they reveal allegations that Thomas T. Anderson and Francis L. Gill were involved in a conspiracy to steal public land. Kevin Kerrigan has more.
The two individuals indicted by the Special Territorial Grand Jury investigating land management are attorney Francis L. Gill and land surveyor Thomas T. Anderson. Both men have been charged with conspiracy to commit theft, attempted theft, and tampering with public records. The indictment states that between November 1988 through September 1990, Anderson and Gill did knowingly agree with each other that they would intentionally engage in conduct which constituted the crime of theft of public land. The particular case cited is that of Lot 285 in Petey. The first overt act states that between November and December of 1988, Tommy Anderson prepared a map of this property in Petey. The second act, Anderson got the lot number 285 from the Department of Land Management, a lot number designating this area he mapped as private property, when in fact, according to the indictment, it is the property of the people of Guam. The third act, Tommy Anderson instructed his draftsman Roy Aguilar to disregard Aguilar's findings that this property was public land and to draw a map of 285 indicating that it was privately owned. The fourth overt act, at the same time that Anderson was preparing the map of 285, Francis Gill entered into an agreement, deed and mortgage on Lot 215 with Emelina Pangilinan, a property right next door to the then being created 285. The fifth overt act, Anderson certified on his map of 285 that all the corners were set at the direction of the claimant. The sixth act, the claimant is Francis Gill. The seventh overt act, Anderson surveyed a fraudulent survey map. The eighth overt act, Anderson and Gill presented the map to the Department of Land Management for approval, claiming it was private land when they both knew it was in fact public property. The second charge of the indictment states that Anderson and Gill intentionally and unlawfully attempted to transfer the 39,000 square meters of Lot 285 to Guam Landvest with the intent of depriving the people of Guam of their property. And the final charge, tampering with public records, it states that Thomas Anderson and Francis Gill did with the intent to injure and defraud the territory and the people of Guam, make and present a document knowing it to be false and intending that it be received as a genuine record of Guam. Francis Gill was released yesterday in a $500,000 bond. $50,000 of that was posted in cash by Gill. The remainder will be posted in the form of property owned by Gill. $450,000 in property must be posted with the court by next Friday in order to complete the terms of Gill's bail. Gill was also ordered to surrender his passport, his .38 Smith & Wesson, and his firearms ID card, and he was ordered placed in the custody of his parents and told to stay away from all ports of entry and stay away from Tommy Anderson. Anderson was arrested at his hotel in Saipan at 7 a.m. this morning on a governor's warrant signed by CNMI executive Larry I. Guerrero. Guerrero signed the warrant for Anderson's arrest after being called by Guam Governor Joseph Ada. Anderson returned to Guam just after 4 this afternoon, too late to be processed by the court. He will remain in the Rosario Detention Center over the weekend. His initial appearance is expected to be scheduled for Monday morning. The government is requesting a $1 million bond. Kevin Kerrigan, Cable News, Agana.
A 1981 deposition taken from Tommy Anderson, made available today by Superior Court. It reveals that 9 years ago, Tommy Anderson, under oath, said that when now Lieutenant Gubernatorial candidate Jose Ping Duenas was a senator in the early 70s, he and his uncle, former Speaker Florencio T. Ramirez, directed him to claim for the Ramirez family 4 times more land than the historically recorded size of the family's property. The deposition was unsealed by court order after the Attorney General's office requested to see it in connection with its ongoing investigation of corruption at the Department of Land Management and the alleged theft of government land. Kevin Kerrigan reports.
The Ramirez estate, a property that grew from 30 hectares to more than 155 hectares following a 1974 survey by now indicted land scam suspect, surveyor Tommy Anderson. As Cable News has reported in detail, the evidence that the property was only 30 hectares in size dates back to the turn of the century. Jesus Ramirez Borja bought the land in 1915 for $50 in a bull cart. He bought only 30 hectares. And throughout the years, the property remained on the tax rolls as a piece of land that measured only 30 hectares in size. How it got to be more than 155 hectares is explained by Tommy Anderson himself in this 9-year-old deposition, a deposition given in a civil suit filed by the wife of another surveyor against the Ramirez heirs, a deposition that had remained sealed until yesterday when the Attorney General's office sought and won a motion from the court to unseal it, to assist in their ongoing investigation of land theft. In this 9-year-old deposition, under oath, Anderson was asked about the survey job he did on the Ramirez estate in 1974, a survey done 16 years ago from today, 7 years prior to the time this deposition was given. We went up with the Speaker Ramirez and we tore around the approximate boundary that he believed that's the boundary for his father's land, said Anderson. Attorney John Durking, who was and still is representing the plaintiff in this case, asked Anderson, did anyone else in the Ramirez family deal with you? Anderson responded, then later on his niece, John Duenas, John Ping Duenas. Then again, Durking asks, who besides Larry Ramirez worked with you? Oh, Ping Duenas, said Anderson. What did Senator Duenas do with you? He just pointed out that he believed this is supposed the land on the northwest should be more further up from the road, said Anderson. Later, Attorney Durking once again asks, so Larry Ramirez and Senator Duenas, former Speaker and Senator Duenas, took you around the boundaries? It's mostly Speaker took me around, said Anderson. Designated boundaries, yes, approximately, said Anderson. Which encompasses 155 hectares, right? Asked Durking. Yes, said Anderson. Then Senator Ping Duenas is now Lieutenant Gubernatorial candidate Jose Ping Duenas. When we first asked him a couple of months ago about this property, which up until last year he was the administrator of, Duenas said he had nothing to do with the property he is an heir to.
But you are a candidate for lieutenant governor running at a time when land is a critical issue for the people of this island.
Yes.
What concerns do you have about a property which you have involvement with that may be encroaching upon publicly owned land?
I have no involvement in this property.
Anderson's deposition doesn't stop with a description of who told him to claim 4 times more property than the historical record shows. The survey contract is also discussed in this deposition. As cable news has reported, Anderson's survey contract states that Anderson would get 20% of the land he surveyed, less 38 hectares. Anderson found 155 hectares minus 38 hectares. That's 117 hectares. Anderson got 20% of that. He was given 120,000 square meters of land for his survey work. Anderson said that the Ramirez family, according to his sworn deposition, particularly mentioned that they didn't want me to take anything, any property out of the 38 hectares. The tax roll area is 38, said Anderson, and I talked to land management, and they might, and it depend on the arguments, allow at least 10, 15 hectares. It goes on to reveal that Anderson initially thought he could get only an additional 10 to 15 hectares more out of his survey of the Ramirez estate. Durking again asks, these boundaries encompass 155 hectares, right? Yes, said Anderson. The tax roll shows 38 hectares. Yes, said Anderson. You felt you could get 15 more, hopefully? Yeah. I discussed with land management, said that most, they felt about it since the land management have no actual record up there, that they're really claiming it all. So it's negotiable area thing, said Anderson. Anderson even admitted that he expected to get more resistance from land management than he got. Did you expect them to resist the 155 hectares, asked Durking. Yes, said Anderson. Did they, asked Durking. I expected them to make objection to it. Then I make another further research, and I make a strong stand on my work. I did, that the government shouldn't make more objection than what it is now. And the government did not object any further. In fact, as cable news has reported, then Land Management Chief Surveyor Demetrio Pablo informed the AG's office that the monuments and boundaries had been verified, that he had no objection to the claim of 155 hectares. Title was granted in 1982, but according to documents filed in court yesterday, the Ramirez's registered and titled claim to 155 hectares of land is now under criminal investigation for the possibility of theft of government land. Kevin Kerrigan, Cable News, Agana.
Late this afternoon, Anderson's attorney, Mike Phillips, said that he contacted Anderson at the Rosario Detention Center to ask him about the controversy. Anderson said to Phillips, quote, I surveyed land for older members of the Ramirez family in the early 70s. I have never met Ping Duenas or done any work for him. Anderson also denied making the statements that were recorded and certified as having been made by him in 1981. The remarks attributed to Tommy Anderson in that 1981 deposition were signed and certified by him on December 10, 1981. The certification document with Anderson's signature on it is attached to the deposition testimony, which Anderson tonight denied making.
Our top story tonight, the land scandal once again. As cable news has reported over the past 9 months, it's a story that involves allegations of land theft, charges of corruption on the part of public officials, bribery, and more. But not until a 7-year-old report surfaced recently did we realize that the land scandal may well involve murder. That information is contained in a 1983 Fraud and Abuse Task Force report done for the Berdallo administration. A report that officials now say was not acted on or forwarded to appropriate investigative agencies at the time. This never acted on report reveals that 14 years ago, former surveyor Juan Mesa was murdered 1 day before he promised investigators that he would expose associates involved in the land scandal. And his murder, says Police Chief Adolph Scamboluri, may have been connected to another unsolved murder, both tied in to the land scandal. Land surveyor Juan R. Mesa was found dead August 27, 1976, in a boony area of the Mesa residence in Talafofo. He had been shot numerous times in the chest, stomach, and legs. According to a 1983 Fraud and Abuse Task Force report on land management, Mesa was murdered a day before the date he had promised Revenue and Taxation's Criminal Investigation Division to expose his associates. His murder remains unsolved to this day. Police Chief Adolph Scambaluri today said that the police department never saw this report or the information about the Mesa murder contained in it.
No one knew about this information. I wish we did. I wish we had. I find this to be very crucial to the investigation.
Do you know of any reason why this crucial information was not passed on to your office?
I'm not really sure why it was not officially passed down to us or referred down to us, unless someone is trying to obstruct the proper notification to the authorities of what has happened here.
Scambaluri, though, said that the Mesa murder had already been put back on the front burner as a result of information recently provided to the GPD by the FBI.
Was that he was a land surveyor, and that he knew quite a bit about people ripping off the government, Guam land, and that may have been the cause for him being murdered.
And Scambaluri said that Mesa's murder may be linked with another unsolved 1973 murder, that of Eugene T. Potter. Potter was shot in the head on November 14, 1973. He was found on the rocks beside Marlboro Cave. Scambaluri said that Mesa is believed to have had information relating to the Potter murder.
That the homicide case of Mr. Mesa, we may be some connection with another homicide of a fellow by the name of Mr. Potter, that his body was found in amongst the rocks at Marble Cave.
Beyond valuable information relating to an unsolved murder, this 1983 Fraud and Abuse Task Force report is full of damning allegations against former Land Management Director Demetrio Pablo and indicted fired Land Administrator Joseph Cruz. It was compiled by former U.S. Controller Ben Fukutomi. Fukutomi was working under contract for the Bordallo administration at the time. The 1983 report that he put together was termed preliminary, but it recommended an in-depth investigation. But an in-depth investigation was never done. Attorney General Elizabeth Barrett Anderson today said that neither the report nor the information in it was ever passed on to her office either.
A lot of the information that's in here we are now aware of. It would have been nice to have had this report early on, last summer, last December, last January when we started our investigation. I think it was a lot of hard work and hard effort for us to go through developing and getting these cases again, and they're all spelled out right here.
Why wasn't it passed on?
I have absolutely no idea. I think the information, absolutely, yeah.
Besides the police department and the Attorney General's office, both of whom said today that they hadn't seen the Fukutomi report, cable news has contacted numerous other local and federal agencies about that 1983 report. None of them can recall ever seeing it either. Then Land Management Director Tony Charfaros and other land management employees have confirmed that Fukutomi is the one who asked them the questions in 1983 and compiled the report that we now have. He was doing it, they said, under contract for the Bordallo administration. But Charfaros says he cannot recall any follow-up investigation which was recommended in the report. Former prosecuting attorney Tom Lannon today, who was later to head the white-collar crime task force under Bordallo, did recall that there had been a previous Bordallo administration task force headed by, he said, an auditor, but he doesn't remember anything coming out of that investigation. Senator Eddie Regis today, who was lieutenant governor under Bordallo and headed the White Collar Task Force Advisory Committee, recalls that yes, indeed, Fukutomi was doing some investigative work for the Bordallo administration, but he says he never saw Fukutomi's report and he doesn't know who it was given to or why it wasn't forwarded to the appropriate agencies. Former Governor Bordallo's press aide, Kathy Galt, contacted today, said that it is unfair to suggest that former Governor Bordallo did nothing about the Fukutomi report on land management because the former governor is no longer able to respond.
The name of a dead man was used in a scheme to steal public land. That's according to an indictment last night of 5 people in connection with the land scandal. The indictment reveals that not only was a dead man's name used in a deed to illegally transfer property, but a notary public certified the dead man's signature. An employee of Revenue and Tax made up a fake tax history for a property the dead man never owned, and then the whole thing was sold to an unwitting buyer for $50,000. This miracle resurrection of the dead for a bogus land transaction was allegedly accomplished by surveyor Thomas T. Anderson, attorney Francis Gill, fired former land administrator Joseph Cruz, Anderson's girlfriend Chin Wirtz, and John L. Anderson. Kevin Kerrigan reports.
Thomas T. Anderson, Francis L. Gill, Joseph B. Cruz, Chin Y. Wirtz, John L. Anderson. These 5 people were all indicted last night on multiple counts of forgery, theft by deception, conspiracy to commit theft, attempted theft, tampering with public records, solicitation to commit theft, conspiracy to tamper with public records, and official misconduct. The most incredible scheme alleged in this indictment is the use of a dead man's name to accomplish the theft of publicly owned property. The documents state that sometime between April and June of 1988, surveyor Tommy Anderson approached Jose T. Garcia and asked Garcia if he had an uncle. Garcia told Anderson that his uncle Gregorio Q. Timinglow had recently died, and that apparently suited Anderson's purposes well, because the document reveals that Anderson told Garcia he would acquire land under Gregorio Q. Timinglow's name. Garcia didn't seem to mind, because he agreed to let Anderson use his dead uncle's name and assisted Anderson in the scheme. This is the lot, 154A Umatic, and this is one of 2 sets of quitclaim deeds the indictment states Anderson falsified. It purports to transfer the 3 hectares of lot 154A to Jose Garcia from his dead uncle, Gregorio Timinglow. The indictment states that Anderson knew Timinglow was dead. This dead man's deed was taken by Anderson to Notary Public Patricia Camacho, and Camacho notarized the deed as if Timinglow had signed it in her presence, which at the time was impossible because Timinglow was dead. Camacho not only notarized the dead man's deed, she backdated it to a time when Timinglow was alive. Anderson then took the dead man's deed to land management, where he got the 3-hectare property recorded, and later Anderson arranged to have it sold to his girlfriend Chin Wirtz. That brought the property into the company, Anderson's company, Unitac, on whose board Chin Wirtz sits. Francis Gill enters the picture now. In March of 1989, Gill bought into the dead man's deed. Tommy Anderson then surveyed it, and it didn't stay 3 hectares for long. After Tommy got through with it, it went from the 3 hectares listed in all the previous documents of transfer to 9.5 hectares, 60,000 square meters more. Anderson's draftsman at the time was Roy Aguilar, and Aguilar knew that that extra land was government land. But the indictment states that Anderson told Aguilar to disregard that and draw the map indicating that it was private property when it was in fact public land. Francis Gill signed and approved this map under the special note admitting that he, Gill, set and approved all corners on this inflated claim, when Gill knew, according to the indictment, that the land encompassed by 154A was in fact property of the government of Guam. But it apparently wasn't ready to sell yet. The property still needed more history, more documentation, more credibility. So Anderson's first cousin, fired former land administrator Joseph Cruz, entered the scene. Cruz knew just the man for the job, then Rev and Tax employee Vincent Cruz. According to the indictment, Vincent Cruz, who was working in the real property section of Revenue and Tax at the time, made up fake documents reflecting a tax history on the dead man's lot dating back to 1972. Even though the property had never been on the tax rolls of Guam under Gregorio Timinglow's name, Vincent Cruz made it up and marked it down. He didn't put down 3 hectares or the 10 it grew to after Anderson's survey. He put it down on the tax rolls as being 13 hectares. Then John L. Anderson was called in to file a notice claiming more than 9.5 hectares. And Francis Gill muddled the waters as well some more by filing a couple of ownership notices himself, claiming 8.5 hectares. All dubious documents designed to create a fake history on an inflated lot which would give a false veneer of credibility to an unwitting buyer. That's when David Cassidy came along. Between December 88 and January 1989, Surveyor Anderson negotiated and broker John L. Anderson of Central Realty executed the sale of this forged, inflated dead man's land to David Cassidy. Cassidy paid $50,000 for what the indictment describes as theft by deception, an alleged conspiracy between Tommy Anderson, John L. Anderson, Francis Gill, Joseph Cruz, and Chin Wirtz, all of whom according to the indictment, knowingly agreed with each other to steal land belonging to the people of Guam. Kevin Kerrigan, Cable News, Agana.
There are other alleged crimes involving other properties cited in the indictment and other people who were not indicted, although they played important roles in helping Anderson, Cruz, Gill, Wirtz, and Anderson allegedly steal public property. Kevin Kerrigan takes a look at those other properties and names in this report.
Among the other properties are lots 521, 522, and 503 New in Maritzo. As Cable News has already reported in detail, these properties encompass 3,030,000 square meters. Anderson did the maps claiming as private, property which the indictment states is in fact public. And companies that Francis Gill is associated with ended up buying these lots. The properties that led to Anderson and Gill's first indictment is also incorporated into last night's superseding indictment. Those are lots 285 and 215 in Petey, which have also been reported on by Cable News. And there are a number of other people mentioned in the document who reportedly played important roles in the alleged conspiracy, but they were not indicted. They include former Revenue tax employee Vincent Cruz, who made up a fake tax roll history for the dead man's lot. Cruz works at Land Management now. He was not there today when Cable News arrived. We asked Frank Castro about his future.
I knew that he was being investigated, but exactly what he did is unknown to me. But I know that if that in fact what happened is entirely improper.
What are you going to do about it?
Well, if in fact Vincent Cruz is involved in an activity of this nature, then of course I'm going to have to take the action.
What action?
Possibly to the most severe action of possibly removal.
Also named in the documents but not indicted is Joseph Cruz's sister, Joanne Cruz Roberto. She assigned 2 new lot numbers to Tommy Anderson, 521 and 522. Lot numbers that Anderson used to claim as private hundreds of thousands of square meters of public land. Roberto declined comment today, but Castro says that she had no authority to give Anderson those lot numbers.
If a new lot number is to be assigned to a property, it has to clear through the survey division. Survey division will have to request the deputy registrar.
In this case, they did not.
In this particular case, as far as I know, they did not.
So
And
Joseph Cruz Roberto should not have done that.
He should not have done it, yes.
What will you do now as a result?
Well, again, there again is I will restate that, like Vincent Cruz, I knew that the matter is under investigation. If in fact that's what really transpired, then and the employee is guilty, then something has to be done administratively.
Deputy Land Surveyor Bernie Ortega Jr. also gets his first unindicted mention. Joseph Cruz reads count 8 of the indictment, instructed Ortega to expedite the survey maps prepared and certified by Joseph B. Cruz's first cousin, Tommy Anderson, and to approve these maps without first checking their integrity and correctness.
Oh, I guess.
Is that true?
Oh, this is very confusing because he said without checking their integrity and correctness.
Is that true?
He wouldn't give any, I don't know if, shucks. I don't know. I don't feel like commenting on that at this time.
As Cable News has reported, Ortega approved dozens of grossly deficient Anderson maps that claimed as private millions of square meters of public land. Then there's Jose T. Garcia, who volunteered his dead uncle for use in Anderson's alleged scheme, and Notary Public Patricia Camacho. She certified and backdated Garcia's uncle's fake deed at a time when Garcia's uncle was dead and gone. We could not contact either today. None of these people, though, were indicted last night, but the grand jury is not through. They've been called back to resume hearing more evidence on the growing land scandal next Tuesday. Kevin Kerrigan, Cable News, Agana.
Wrapping our news tonight, Surveyor Thomas T. Anderson entered pleas of guilty today to 3 counts of attempted theft of public property, tax evasion, and failure to file income tax returns. Anderson also agreed to forfeit his surveyor's license and never practice that trade again. But above all, Anderson has entered into a detailed and lengthy agreement of cooperation with the government. As his plea agreement states, Anderson will in effect be working full-time with land scam investigators for possibly as long as the next 2 years, all in an effort to unravel the corrupt and tangled trail left in the wake of at least 20 years of mismanagement and theft of Guam's public lands. Kevin Kerrigan reports.
Surveyor Tommy Anderson today admitted that with the assistance of others, he tried to steal property belonging to the people of Guam. In a plea agreement accepted and filed with the Superior Court this morning, Anderson pleaded guilty to 3 counts of attempted theft of public land. The first count involves lots 521 and 522 in Mauricio, both of which were first reported on by cable news in February of this year. These 2 properties are named in the second indictment against Anderson, an indictment which also named Francis Gill, Joseph B. Cruz, Chin Wirtz, and John L. Anderson as co-conspirators. Anderson today admitted that he prepared the survey maps of 521 and 522, identifying them as private, when in fact he knew that this land was public property. This is one of a number of cases where a dead man's deed was used in quitclaim deeds to transfer the property. The area involved in lots 521 and 522 is more than 3 million square meters, conservatively valued by prosecutors at more than $15 million. The second count, which Anderson confessed to today, concerns Lot 154A, also detailed in the second indictment handed down against Anderson and others. Anderson today admitted that, here again, with the assistance of others, a dead man's deed was used to transfer the property and that he drew a map of it claiming as private 100,000 square meters of what he knew to be public property. The third count concerns a property not previously listed in the indictments, but one that was first reported on by cable news nearly 11 months ago, January 22nd of this year. That is Lot 125 in Umatic. Again, with the assistance of others, Anderson today admitted that he drew a map of this property showing 819,426,000 square meters, which in fact had an area of only 21,718 square meters. The difference in size, reads the plea agreement, is an area which Thomas Anderson knew was property owned by the government of Guam. Fellow UNITAC board members Albert and Raymond Topazna are the claimants of this particular piece of property. Anderson admitted also to a single charge of tax evasion, confessing that he intentionally evaded paying income taxes in 1988. And he admitted, too, that he willfully failed to file income tax returns in 1984 and 1985. Both pleas were entered this afternoon in federal court. While Anderson's admissions of guilt in this document may seem shocking, none of the details of the charges are especially new or surprising. Many of them have been reported on before, and this plea agreement was expected. It's been under negotiation for at least a month now. What is most noteworthy in this document, though, is the detailed nature of Anderson's agreement to cooperate with land scam investigators. The agreement states that Anderson will respond truthfully to all matters about which he is questioned by the Attorney General's office. He must testify truthfully at grand jury and at trial, and he agrees to submit to polygraph analysis and to voluntarily submit to handwriting tests or any other forensic testing. Anderson must disclose all criminal conduct of which he is aware, regardless of his involvement. The agreement goes on to say that his cooperation will begin immediately and may require Anderson to be available to the prosecution division on a basis similar to that of a full-time job, i.e. 40 hours or more per week, states the agreement. Anderson waives his rights to an immediate sentencing and agreed to continue his sentencing hearing until such date that the Attorney General's office shall certify that all co-actors suspected by the Attorney General to be involved with Anderson in efforts to obtain property of the government of Guam have been tried in Superior Court or otherwise disposed of. That will take some time, so a provision was written into the agreement allowing Anderson to request sentencing 2 years from now if he wants to. Anderson will also be liable for restitution of the entire amount of value found to be lost by the government of Guam. The document states that prosecutors will go back as far as 1973 in an effort to recover what Anderson obtained or attempted to obtain for himself or others through the manipulation of land surveys. That is 17 years ago, the entire length of Anderson's career as a private surveyor. 1973 is when Anderson first began practicing as a land surveyor, and his first survey job was the Ramirez estate. Anderson will also provide to investigators the account numbers and locations of all his bank accounts and other financial assets, regardless of their whereabouts, as well as the assets of his associates. He further agrees to file accurate income taxes for the years 1984 through 1989 and pay all back taxes as required by law. And lastly, Anderson must surrender his land surveyor's license, acknowledging that the acts which today he has confessed to constitute substantial violations of professional ethics. He can never apply for another surveyor's license or accept employment as a land surveyor again. In exchange for all this, Anderson will be granted full immunity for all other crimes he may admit to, except for the crime of murder. But according to the agreement, Anderson has already said that he has not been involved in any act of homicide. And the government has also agreed to allow Anderson to serve his sentence in a federal facility outside of Guam. Anderson's guilty plea today is the opening of Pandora's box, and Anderson himself gave us a clue as to what is to come. His previous attorneys filed an affidavit in this case in which Anderson himself said that he will defend himself by exposing what he called massive corruption by government officials of the government of Guam. Anderson's plea agreement today is by no means the end of this sorry story, but it is perhaps the beginning of the end. Kevin Kerrigan, Cable News, Agana.
As a postscript to that story, today's hearing at which Anderson pleaded guilty was the hearing that on Monday of this week, government prosecutors sought to close off to the public. As Cable News reported on Monday, though, Judge Janet Weeks denied the government's request to close that hearing. Anderson tonight remains in protective custody at an undisclosed location where he has been for about a month now. In all, on the charges that he pleaded guilty to today, Anderson faces a maximum penalty of 22 years in prison.